Today, I'm going to break down how much I made in my first year as a real estate agent. A little bit about me. I was 29 when I got my license, and I live in Orange County, California. I got my license in December of 2019, but I went full time in March of 2020, pretty much right when COVID hit. I also decided to try to be a solo agent, and I didn't join a team or I didn't really have a mentor. In my first year, I ended up selling 2 residential properties and I referred 1 commercial lease. So let's break down how real estate agents are paid. So commissions are paid to the brokerage representing the seller. This is the most common way for real estate agents to get paid. Commissions are paid by the seller to the brokerage that's representing them. That brokerage agrees to some percentage. It's usually somewhere between 4 and 6%. Most commonly in Orange County, you're seeing 4 to 5%. So in this example, let's say a seller agrees to pay 5% to that brokerage that's selling their home. Most of the time, that brokerage will split that 5% right down the middle. 2.5 to the buyer's agent, 2.5 to the listing agent. Listing agent means they're representing the seller. And so at the time when I started real estate, the average home price in Orange County was $715,000. The average commission on $715,000 would be $17,875. Now here's the next part. So real estate agents don't just get to keep that full $18,000 commission check. Real estate agents have to hang their license at a brokerage. When agents hang their license at a brokerage, a lot of times they're paying a split to that brokerage. So what that means is on that $18,000 check, 20% of it could be going to the brokerage. It just depends on their agreement with their brokerage. Most new agents, they're probably looking at a 70-30 split. And on top of that 30% that they're paying to their brokerage, they're probably paying desk fees, transaction fees. They might be on a team, so they actually have a team split as well. But there's just a handful of fees and costs associated with being a real estate agent. I'm going to break down the commission for my first transaction. And so it was a $455,000 condo in San Diego. And so for those of you who don't know, Orange County and San Diego, depending on where you live in Orange County, it could be a 2-hour drive. It could be a 1-hour drive depending on where in Orange County and San Diego. So this was my really good friend from high school. He was buying his first home, a condo in North Park, San Diego. And the commission on it was 2.5%. So the total commission was $11,375. So here were the fees that I paid to the brokerage that I was with at the time. $75 for broker compliance, $129 for risk management, $365 for a transaction coordinator. That was not paid to the brokerage. That is actually paid to a third-party transaction coordinator. They help manage all the documents that are signed and collected in escrow. Paid a 6% royalty fee, and then my split itself to the brokerage was 25%. So at the end of the day, I took home 64% of that gross commission. And that number is $7,279.75. And to put it in perspective, I started in March full time, and this deal I closed in May. So it took me about 3 months to get my first transaction done. And in that 3 months, I spent a lot of time looking at what the other people in the office did to generate leads. So most of the training that I was provided was, hey, call all your friends and family, tell them you're a real estate agent. The other thing that office was really big on was just cold calling. They'd say, hey, buy this list of homeowners and just call them. In my opinion, there was not a ton of guidance or help. It was more of, hey, go figure this out on your own. And at the end of the video, I'll kind of talk about what I wish I would have done my first year and what would have accelerated my learning. I was pretty fortunate, and I was willing to do the work that I, called all my friends and family like they advised and like they taught. And my friend was buying in San Diego. He had no idea about the home buying process. I walked him through it, but I don't think many agents would have done that because it is a really far drive. Okay, and so my second deal was actually a commercial lease. So agents are in California allowed to do both. It's the same license. Some of the documents are a little bit different, completely different understanding. In that specific office, there was a commercial agent. So I brought that client to him and we split it 50-50. I was actually still the one touring the properties, but he helped me with some of the paperwork and understanding the process for a commercial lease. So the gross commission on that lease was $2,159.65. 25% of that went straight to the brokerage. Half of it went to the commercial agent, and then I had a royalty fee due to the company as well. So on this one, my take home was $745.08. I kept about 35% of the gross commission. So as I spent more time in the office, I basically shared with you all the training that they gave me. It was, hey, call your friends and family, do some cold calling. They did not really teach us how to use a database, a CRM, which is a customer relationship management software that helps, stay in touch with your network, or your database as they'll call it. But there were a couple teams in that office that were producing quite a bit. So I ended up joining a team, and here's why. This team, basically the top producing team in the office, they were always having listings, they were always selling homes, and they were real estate investors themselves. Not only that, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit lonely, just being a lone wolf, working on my own, not having any support. And I knew that I had to be around people that were doing transactions. And I realized that they also weren't cold calling. They were more of a referral based business. Funny enough, though, at the time that I was having the conversation to join their team, they were leaving that brokerage for a different one. And so at that different brokerage, the splits would be a little bit different. And then I also had to have a team split as well. So my fees went from 75-25 to 80-20. And then I also had a team split. You're going to be able to do the math, but I'm not really going to go over the exact numbers out of respect for that team. And then I'll talk about my second residential deal in my first year. So the gross commissions on this one, $16,700. This was actually a referral from my friend in San Francisco. So I paid him a 25% referral fee. So right off the bat, that's $16,700. Subtract $4,175. That's just the referral to him, or his brokerage, excuse me. And then I have my team split, $1,566. So then the commission itself was about $11,000. 20% of that goes to the brokerage. That brokerage actually has an option to buy stock. So I did that. I also paid for a transaction coordinator, $375. And then there was a risk management. There's a risk management and transaction cost, which is like $57. So at the end of the day, I took home $7,900.09. About 47% of the $16,700. Now, obviously, when someone sees a $16,700 check, that's a good chunk of change, right? So totally understandable that people think real estate agents get paid so much and it's such a lucrative career, because it can be. 100% it can be. But here are the hidden costs that come along with being a real estate agent. And some big takeaways from my first year. I actually had another side hustle. So I was doing this part-time and I was also working at night. It was a really challenging year and I spent a lot of time, basically this was a full-time job, and then I still had that side hustle. Luckily that side hustle was kind of covering all of our living expenses, and my wife also worked. So super thankful I had a supportive wife with a steady job, and I still had my side hustle. So for anyone thinking about getting into the business, I would recommend definitely having some savings. You might not hit the ground running. It might take you a couple months to really get your first deal. As a newer agent, I would expect it to take a few months to get your first deal. And keep in mind, the total commissions paid from all three of those deals in my first year was about $30,000, and I took home about $16K of that. And that's not including my additional expenses, right? Any type of gas, any type of flyers, any type of marketing I was paying for on my own as well. if I could redo my first year, this is what I would have done. I would have found the top producing agent in my area or the top 5, and I would have interviewed those people. I talked to a bunch of different agents in Orange County that were top producing. Many of them were solo agents. None of them really wanted to mentor, and they didn't have teams. So if I could do it again, I would have probably joined a team, or I would have found an agent that I could directly be mentored by. And I would have given up more of those splits to that team or that agent for the knowledge, because that would have accelerated my learning. And here's what I would expect from that mentor or that team. A is the ability to work their leads. So what I mean by that is if they have listings, I would go run the open houses and I would learn how to work with buyers. I would also figure out their exact system and process for getting the listing and what actually happens in the real estate transaction. Something that I had trouble with my first year was when I went to go submit my first offer, I didn't really know how to do it, and the office I was at provided minimal guidance on how to do that. They also provided minimal guidance on how to talk to other agents to get that offer accepted. The other thing that I would expect from my mentor or team is overall systems. So what systems do they have in place to basically educate new agents, educate their clients, and how do they get their results? And is it replicatable for me to achieve those results? So overall, my first year, I didn't make a ton of money. Luckily, I had a supportive wife, steady job, and I had a side hustle that got us through that year. But all of my efforts in year 1 really paid off in year 2. So understand, if you get into this business, it could take some time to find some success. Obviously, there's unique situations where you see first year agents and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Many of them are already local celebrities or they already have an online brand. So you could see a YouTuber that has, 500,000 subs, that has 500,000 subscribers in their area, get into real estate. Well, they already have a following and they already have people that know and like them. Another good example would be a small business owner in the community that's been there for a long time. Maybe a nail salon owner has been in the community for 20 years and they decide they want to get into business. Well, they already know a bunch of people in their community. So I'm not saying it's impossible to do really well in your first year, but if you don't have some sort of advantage, then I think it's more likely you're going to have a first year similar to mine. If you're doing all the right activities in your first year, it will set you up to have a great second year. So in my second year, I made over 6 figures. I'm going to break down my year 2 and how I found success then. If you like this video, please smash the like button. Also, if you have any questions or comments or anything that you want me to cover in my year 2 video, please drop a comment below. Otherwise, I'll see you in my year 2 video.